Greetings and salutations, Real Estate Undergrounders. It is Ed Mathews with the Real Estate Underground. Thank you so much for making us a part of your day. Today, I'm really excited actually because I've been following this guy for a while. He doesn't know it. I've been stalking him. I discovered him when he was flipping houses in Wyoming and elsewhere. And now that company has grown into three companies plus. With that, I'd love to welcome Casey Gregersen to the show. These days, we're talking about Bighorn Capital Fund, but we can also talk about YO Homes and Gregersen Properties and anything else you want to talk about. Welcome, Casey. It's good to finally meet you.
You bet, Ed. Pleasure, man. Appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, of course. I can't remember. I think I discovered you on LinkedIn. That's usually where I find folks to have conversations with and pick their brains. And every once in a while, they're kind enough to come on the show and have a conversation with me. So thank you for that. So for those folks who haven't discovered you, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So just everybody, right? You got where you came from, where you're at now, where you're going, which I think everybody can relate to. I think similar to a lot of your listeners, I worked the W-2 job for a long time. So I started in 2012 for Shell as a petroleum engineer. I grew up in Wyoming and I still invest there today. So something you'll probably ask later, why Wyoming? Well, it's where I grew up. It's where I went to grad school. But I had a great opportunity to go work in Houston for Shell Oil Company as a petroleum engineer. So what I did is I went to Shell and I worked there for 12 years. But I had a really unique gig, which was good and bad. And one of the best parts about that gig is I would go out to the field for 2 weeks and I'd work on a drilling rig and I'd actually work nights or be the guy in charge, or I'd be like a field engineer driving around locations. For 2 weeks, I'd be on a rig. Then for 2 weeks after that, I would be off and I wouldn't even have to open a work computer or cell phone. I had zero work responsibilities. So that's when I started buying houses. I was buying my first rental, doing my first house hack, started fixing and flipping, and eventually grew and scaled that company where just 3 years ago, almost 3 years, it'll be 3 years in October, I left my W-2 at Shell to go do this full time.
And to leave an oil and gas job, you must be doing very well. So I'm curious about that journey from being the engineer to flipping houses. And while you were keeping your W-2, that had to be one heck of a juggling act. I know you had time off, but still, you've got family and other responsibilities as well. What's that one soft skill or habit that you learned in the oil field town that is now like your secret powers in a real estate world?
Ooh, man, there's a lot of little ones, right? My old W-2 job at Shell, right? The one thing was there was so much red tape. Okay, I'll give you this kind of perspective and story. It was like I was literally living two lives, right? I would work for Shell where it was very slow, methodical, so much red tape to just get a simple, basic decision, have to get it approved by all these different people, go through all these processes, and it would drive you nuts. And it became demotivating. I could do all this work and bring all this value. And then if I can't get 5 sign-offs, it doesn't even matter. So it was frustrating for sure. But the positive was I learned a lot about building processes and building out SOBs and after action reviews, right? Like now I feel like that's a very common thing in today's entrepreneurial world, but I don't know, I feel like 10 years ago it wasn't. And ever since early days with Shell, after we finished drilling a well or whatever project we did, we got together, we did an AR and we went back and reiterated our SOP. So that was a really good thing that's helped me build processes. For example, the way I put this into play was when I built out my property management team and operations, it was actually during COVID when everybody was locked down. Shell laid off 40% of my company that I was in at the time. Because if you remember, it's actually when oil went negative. It was a really rough time. We were cutting 40%. So we were waiting and we didn't know if we had a job. So basically we were reposting for a job, had nothing to do. We're all locked down at home. So what I did is rather than just sit around, I went and I was managing my rental properties at the time. So I was managing probably 10 to 15 units somewhere in Fort Worth, somewhere up in Wyoming, but I was in Houston. I read a book that maybe your listeners have read, and it's 4-Hour Work Week. So I read 4-Hour Work Week and they talk about hiring virtual assistants. Yep. And that's when a light bulb goes off. I'm like, wait, if I can manage these properties from Houston, and I don't even live in Wyoming or in Dallas Fort Worth where I have properties, why can I not train a VA? So that's what I did during COVID is I buckled down, used some of those Shell corporate America skills, wrote out everything on a Google Doc and recorded myself doing everything from getting a property, getting photos, creating the marketing, creating the Zillow post, the Facebook post to tenant screening, everything, literally wrote it all down. And then I hired a virtual assistant and I trained him. I'm like, all right, here's the SOPs, go follow them. And now they iterate. Now they own the SOPs and they're the ones that iterate.
To translate, just in case you're not in corporate America out there, AR, after action report, it's the constant loop of, hey, we did something. Hey, we broke some stuff. Here's how we fix it. Here's what worked. And here's what we're going to do going forward, basically. And SOP is the standard operating procedure that comes out of typically an after action report, or at least it's the doc that gets refined. So if you've seen any of our videos or attended a training or anything like that, we talk about this all the time. And it's really how the big players have scaled their business, is because they don't rely on a guy named Casey to do everything. They've got a team that understands exactly what their role is within the machine. So if Casey decides that he would love to go on vacation with his beautiful family for a week or two, turns out the machine continues to roll. And when he gets back, everything's fine. Yeah, right on. It's something that I see in all of the businesses that have figured out how to scale, and that is how to create operational leverage, right? It's how to build that team and slowly but surely remove the president, founder, CEO, whatever your title you want to wear, out of the day to day. A friend of mine, Charlie Mills, he was my business coach for years, always talked about the sovereign, right? So you want to be the king, not the warrior. The king is the person who works on the business. The warrior is the person who executes. It was revolutionary for me because I come from a similar business culture, but not your business. I'm a Silicon Valley techie guy. The interesting part about it is the early stages of, particularly when I went full time, I had to really fight doing it myself, right? And really because I came from environments where people were so off the charts smart and so competent and so accomplished. If we gathered 3 or 4 people in a conference room, came up with a game plan and left, everybody knew exactly what to do, right? I had to take the virtual assistants and train them step by step. Here's how I want it done, right? The next step is something that I think you just alluded to, which was not only that, but also now that you understand what the standard operating procedure is, you now own it, right? So
Yep.
you're the one who's going to execute this. My way doesn't have to be the way. I don't care about being right. I care about getting it right. And so if you come up with a better way, then let's rewrite the SOP and let's do it your way.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'll hop off my soapbox now.
Oh, it's good. That's exactly how I built it. Same fundamentals.
Part of this is that I'm literally writing a presentation for a group of folks that I'm mentoring in October, and I'm literally writing about standard operating procedures right now and why they're so important. So in terms of the business, we started off flipping houses. Obviously, that went extremely well. It sounds like you evolved that into a rental business, and now we're into private equity. So talk me through that maturation cycle. And it seems like you talk about going private or going full time 3 years ago, but that's not when you started the business, right? Let's talk about where you started and the journey to get to where you are today.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I give you in a nutshell how I built a property management company. And as I mentioned, that'd have been like 2020 COVID, right? The other one that I built a couple of years before that was direct to seller. So I would say up until about 2019, I was finding deals like on market. Like I could go find a distressed property, fix it up. I was doing just commercial loans, and I could go a lot of different ways today, but that's been one. I'll give you it in 30 seconds. But one of the best things I did early on was I started working with small banks. And instead of going to big mortgage brokers, I went to a small bank locally in the town I was investing in, and I did a deal with them. Right, they got to know me. So I did a lot of deals like that where I'd buy it on the market, fix it up, rent it out, or buy it and fix it and flip it. Right. But I started building that. But then as the market started to heat up, I realized I was buying from wholesalers in DFW. And I'm like, man, there's deals that I'm actually losing money on a flip. And those guys still made money on the front end. Right. I'm like, how do I figure out how to do that? So this group out of Midland, they were called the REI Game Changers at the time. I met them presenting on the BRRRR strategy back in like 2017 in Midland, in the little cafe presenting on the BRRRR strategy. But I got to know them. They built out this training course for wholesaling. So I went and took their course, the best $11,000 I've ever invested, because I literally had to close one single deal to pay for that course. So anyway, I started doing direct mail, texting, Facebook ads, pay per lead. We've even done radio. A ton of direct mail has been one of our best ones. And yeah, so we built that company out. So that was in 2019. And I built it out in a market like Wyoming, where there was nobody doing any marketing, right? There weren't any wholesalers back in 2019. And even today, there's not a whole lot. So that started leading up my deal funnel, right? So again, now I've built like I can find a deal, I can manage it long term. Now the one in the middle, which I think was one of the biggest problems I had to solve was construction. I mean, everyone struggles with contractors everywhere, but
Sure.
in Wyoming especially, there's just not enough. And honestly, that's why I love the market so much because the construction can't keep up with demand, right? There's not enough contractors, and there's still a lot of people that want to live up there, especially since post COVID. They want to be up there, but they can't keep up with demand. So I had to figure out how do I make my business more predictable. And the first thing I did, it came down to as soon as I can get enough rental properties, I can afford a full-time person, I'm going to hire him because then at least I got one guy I can rely upon. So that's what I did. I hired the first one. He hired some just kind of laborers and subs. And then I hired the second one and third one, fourth one. So now today I have 4 to 5 different crews working on all of our floor pipes. They're spread out throughout the region. That way I can be getting, if I got a rental property that needs a quick little handyman, I send a guy over there. Like I can move quick.
Smart.
And the biggest thing is on my fix and flips now, I bring so much more predictability. It's across the business, right? Even in my buy and holds that I know I got to fix up or rent out, I've added so much more predictability on timelines and budgets. So now when I actually go look at a deal, I'm sure you probably agree, Ed, one of the biggest risks in like when you're doing construction or value add is like, are you going to be on target? Are you going to hit your scope? Are you going to hit your timelines?
Carrying costs, sir. Will
Yeah.
you up.
Oh yeah. And it was continually like when we were like doing after action reviews, we're looking back, we're like, this is where we're missing because we were working with a GC or we missed this or missed that, or we over timeline. So anyway, it was one I iterated and fixed. But to answer your question of like how it goes full circle, I found in Wyoming, it was really hard. And then I fought it for a long time, just trying to be like, I want to wholesale. Like all my peers that I'm learning from they're just finding deals, locking them up and wholesaling them and not doing any work. In my market, it was just hard for me to find cash buyers. But then I realized, wait, I don't get to have it both ways, right? Because I have way less competition. There's not a bunch of wholesalers competing with, but there's also not a whole lot of buyers, like investor buyers. So my solution to that was I can now get my cake and eat it too, was raise more money, take more deals down myself. Because if I've got find a deal, I can do the construction, I can manage the property. Now it just becomes my solvable problem was we need to raise enough capital to take down these deals. Because the retail market in Wyoming and Montana, there's still plenty of people buying. You just got to be the guy that fixes it up and gets it there. So that's where kind of Bighorn Capital Fund came into play. It's like, I got to have a way to scalably keep growing and deploy more money on deals. When you're funding 3 different types of operations and also the purchase price.
Sure does. You've mentioned a couple things along the way here that I want to unpack. So one of them was predictability in terms of your construction. So tell me more about that. I think I have a preconceived notion of what you're talking about, but I'm going to make you explain it instead.
Yes. So you get, okay, here's the best scenario and I'll just give you like today when I'm looking at a deal. So when a deal comes in my pipeline, my acquisitions team gets a deal and they're bringing it to me and we're trying to figure out, okay, how much is this going to cost? What's the timeline? We now know that I'm talking to the guy that's going to do the work and he's quoting it and I know his schedule. I control his schedule. And that's probably the biggest thing I'm going to get at is I get to control that schedule versus most fix and flippers, or even if it's your first one, you find a deal that on paper, it looks like you're buying it at the right price. Let's assume you got it at a good price for the rehab budget and you know the ARV. You're like, okay, this deal makes sense. But who's going to come do the work and when are they going to do the work? And you just talked about holding costs, right? Like I can time these things out and it just brings so much more predictability to like my investors, right? And the guys I partner with, I'm like, hey, guys, when I say this is our timeline, this is our budget, I know we can actually hit it because it's not a third party I'm relying upon. And as those guys, they got to make money. They got to appease, I don't know, 4 or 5, maybe 10 different clients. I just like the control and the predictability that they're in-house guys. And again, it's just so valuable. Even if you just purely timeline, even if it's not cost, like, fortunately I get cost and timeline or control is great.
Yeah, I've done both. I've done the captive contractor relationship where they're pretty much working for us, although they're separate. They're in a 1099, not a W-2. We've also brought people on, and that, I'll tell you, that was a dream for the exact reason you just laid out. Because between balancing the flips and the rental properties, we could always keep them busy. And there was always an expert hand that we could throw at a problem and get it solved very quickly with somebody that we knew and trusted. Having the same labor is huge, but also we use the same materials everywhere, same cabinets, same flooring, same paint, all of that. And I'm curious, is that something that you do as well?
We've not taken the time to completely, like, we have same general paint and flooring, but our deals are so diverse, right? Every remodel and new construction is very tempting and exciting for me, and we want to do more of it for that exact reason and
Right.
start to replicate things. But
Everything's square
our
and plumb.
remodels they're so different. And even my guys, they finally think like me, right? Like it was so cool. We have every year we have base camp and we bring all our teams together. Last year we were right outside Park City in Evansville, Wyoming.
Yep.
And I had everybody there and it was cool hearing those guys talk about, they're like, we got to fix and flip and Home Depot's got this flooring that's on discount that they're removing. Like they go get it. And I've just trained these guys. They budget everything and they know they get rewarded and they're just intrinsically rewarded. We've created a competition, right? We're being on budget, right? And being able to keep our costs down. So ultimately I give them really full autonomy. They'll work with an agent to make sure they don't go do something crazy and ridiculous. But yeah, I give them a lot of autonomy to go figure out like what is going to make sense. Because the other thing is sourcing, right? Wyoming, it's a lot harder to source materials. So it's like, we got to put together what's available and I give them the freedom.
And so how far out are you in terms of ordering materials and things like that? Is it just in time or are you building inventory? How do you do that?
We're eventually going to get to that point. So I did a 66 unit value add and we probably touched almost 30 to 40 of those units. So on that one, we were able to start to order a bunch of cabinets, order countertops, order appliances, order windows, flooring. And we had enough space where we could do it. We're doing it now on a hotel conversion up in Wheatland, Wyoming. I was just visiting there a couple of weeks ago and one of the units is all loaded up. But when you can do it, it does save a lot of time. And we work with Home Depot. They're probably a pretty good distributor to get us stuff. But the majority of the time, if it's a fix and flip, they just go get what they need at Home Depot or whatever else and they go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just talking to a buddy of mine down in New Jersey who does this, and he was doing so many flips and converting so many apartments over the last 5, 6 years. He ended up buying a kitchen cabinet distributorship. He's his own biggest customer, but he's getting them at manufacturer direct prices. I was like, wow, that's really smart. He's a lot bigger than me. So maybe I'll just buy from him instead.
Tempting.
It is, right? Because it
Yeah.
actually, in terms of cash outlay, as long as you can commit to a specific amount of sales, which you have access to because you know what your sales were in terms of your material costs last year in the last 2, 3 years, you know exactly what they were. And you know what your pipeline looks like. So you know what it's going to look like more or less in the future. All you have to do is commit to a certain level of purchases from the manufacturer and they'll approve you for distributorship.
Wow. You just gave me a new project for one of my
We can
project.
all right. So let's move on to the lightning round here. And I'm always curious about folks that have reached a certain level of success. The mortgage is paid, the car payments are taken care of, the kids' college education is all lined up. Things are good, right? Nevertheless, you get out of bed on Monday morning and dive right back into the office. So for me, that comes down to purpose because it's not money that's driving you anymore. It's something else. And I'm curious what that is in your life.
Yeah. It's two parts, right? I still am driven by still having even more freedom. Like I'm still in the building phase and building out different companies. The latest thing, and I'll explain it with the latest thing I'm building, but I'm really excited for the day where I can really, my 3 or 5 year goal is to be able to do a lot more public speaking and help more people, which I guess that's the purpose. And I'll explain it a little bit more. Back to that COVID scenario I told you about where I was at home, 40% of our team was getting laid off. I'll never forget the conversations I was having with my colleagues there about what's going to happen. If they call my number, what am I going to do? Obviously, no one's hiring right now, or there's not many jobs right now in oil and gas. What are we going to do? Right? But they weren't doing what I was doing. They weren't building this off ramp to go right into real estate. They had given everything. They just had their 401k and maybe their severance, and they were going to have to figure it out. So I just realized at that time that while it was really fun building out these companies, building out my direct to seller company, building out construction, building out property management, what I found was those conversations. And now since then, like anytime, like right now, I'll give you an example. Last night, I went and did a presentation here in North Houston and I was presenting on the Revive method. And if anybody's interested later, I'll share a link. It's the way we structure our fix and flips. And we're able to de-risk we almost take all the risk out of a fix and flip because we partner with a seller. Right. But anyway, I'm giving the presentation and I'm sharing my story, and there's several other oil and gas folks in there that are still working 12-hour shifts like I am. They're still in the grind. and being able to connect with them afterward. And what I did is I'm like, hey, I want you guys to come to my workshop. So my next workshop is in October. It's in Houston. And I'm like, come to the workshop. Because what I built this workshop around was helping families achieve financial freedom. So they're like my perfect avatar of folks that are still working their W-2. They're doing well, right? But they want something more. But a lot of times they don't have time. And again, I had to get older and more mature and realize that not everybody's like me. They just want to maybe chill out and go to the lake.
Some guys want to throw a hook in the water.
That's right. Exactly. I still want to be able to help those folks to where they're still doing really well and they still have an opportunity if they just knew how. And I'm telling you, like, I'm lighting up right now just thinking about the first workshop because there were so many things we covered. First off, we helped them with that. What is your 10-year vision? Let's actually get together, get rid of the right people, take some time and think about that vision. Where are you going? And the second thing was, now, how do we start to get there? What do we do over the next 90 days? And this is where I get lighted up because I'm like, I've just been through it. I know what banks they should be talking to, how they should be leveraging their credit, 0% interest credit cards, leveraging self-directed IRAs, all these different ways that they can deploy money that they already have, that they probably don't even realize they have, and deploy it in real estate or other avenues. So that's the stuff I really like because I've been doing it forever. And I'm like, I know your position. I've been there. Let me help you start to create financial freedom. I want people to be able to make the decision I made. I finally, after 12 years or whatever, decided I was going to choose family over my work. Right. And I want everyone, even if now's not the right time, I'm not at all a proponent about everyone burn the ships, quit your W-2. I just want you to be able to have that choice.
Right on. Yeah. It's the whole concept of time freedom. You don't realize how amazing and important it is. I have kids, you have kids, but even a spouse or a life partner or whatever, to be able to, my grandfather said it best. And that was, you only get 18 summers with them. I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. And I'm at the end of that cycle where my youngest is starting her senior year of high school on Tuesday. So she's gone. And the older one is graduating from college in 4 months. So she's gone. And so now my wife and I are looking at each other. Okay, we still like each other. So that's cool. But
Yeah.
now what? Having that time freedom to be able to go to that parent teacher conference or the soccer game or go on vacation and not have to sweat or even ask a boss, hey, I'm going to take 10 days off and we're going to go to Hawaii. Is that okay? There is no, is that okay? That conversation's happening at your dinner table, not in a conference room, right?
That's right.
Yeah. So
100%.
yeah, that is probably the most, looking back on it, it's probably the most valuable thing that I got out of this whole experience. And sounds like you're similar, is that time freedom is just immeasurably valuable.
Oh yeah, exactly. So if I can wake up every morning helping more people feel that same feeling, and it's just
Right.
yeah,
They think in future state, when I'm 65, this is going to be awesome. No, you can do it when you're 40 if you want.
yeah,
I'm 55, so I'm an older guy, but I wish I had come to the realization you did a lot earlier than I did. We just, you can only affect today and tomorrow. So I'm also curious about the mentors that you've had in your life. You mentioned the wholesaling training that you got, but I'm sure there have been other really important people in your life that have guided you along the way or kicked you in the pants when you needed it. I'm curious, what's the best advice you ever got and who gave it to you?
and I'll give you a unique one. It was in a tough time where I was doing a bunch of fix and flips and we were using hard money and combining with private money. It was going really well, but all of a sudden we hit some bumps in the road and properties wouldn't sell. I literally had to call my hard money lenders. One of them was like a shark and they were absolutely terrible through us. But one was really good to me. And he's the one I want to share. He gave me good advice. He goes, Casey, because I called him up. I'm like, John, his name's John. I'm like, John, we're in trouble. I can't get these properties sold. Like, we got to get properties moved and I need some flexibility on our payments. He goes, all right, Casey, that sucks. I'm sorry. I wish I could say I haven't, but I've been there. And he's like, all you can do now is drop price. You need all those properties on the market, drop them 10,000 every week until you get it sold and just keep dropping. So that's what we did. We dropped them and we kept doing it after 3 or 4 weeks. It finally sold. And to this day, I've just learned that like whenever I go and I list the flip, and it's actually why back to that revive method, the revive method is a strategy I do now to fix and flip properties. But I was thinking about that the other day when I was doing this property where I'm partnering with the seller to where now the house isn't selling. And I'll tell you, as a fix flipper, and those of you guys who've done it, the worst feeling ever is when you've got a property that you just finished flipping, right? You've got through all the contractor stuff and fixed it up. It's on the market and you're all excited. And guess what? You
Nope.
don't get any offers 1 week. Next week, no offers.
Yep.
Now all your showings start going away and you're just sitting there stagnant. Like, oh my gosh. Oh, I got to go back to John's advice. I just got to drop 10,000, keep dropping. But the revive method helps me. Okay, if we can drop price because we're doing a profit share with a seller and we could still make our money.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's the advice I always think about is that guy could have been like the other lenders and been like, I'm foreclosing on you tomorrow and been really difficult. But he's no, I underwrote this deal correctly. I'm still going to make money. So Casey, drop this house until you can sell it. And then you got paid back.
Yep. Good advice. So I fundamentally believe, and I've learned this in the years and years that I've been in the actually probably teenage years where I made the most mistakes. But over the course of my career, I fundamentally believe that we learn way more from the mistakes we make than from the successes that we have. And so I'm curious about a professional decision that you've made over the years that you look back and go, man, I'd love to have that back. And what'd you do about it?
We were buying properties in and around like Fort Worth, around like the campus of like TCU, and we were buying them at a good price. We had a good GC that was actually doing a really good job for us. So we would buy them cheap, fix them up, and we were refinancing, getting all our money back. And we did it on 4 or 5 properties. And we got this sort of false sense of, wow, look at this, it's leading my W-2. So we started going and we're like, all right, let's now go do some fix and flips at higher price points, which again, got away from exactly what we were doing well. And let's go hire a project manager to put these together. Cause now our current GC is probably not there. He was doing these houses that were buying for 100, putting in 80 and selling, and ARV was like 240, right? Low price points. But now we were going into some houses that were like 5, 6, 700,000, completely different animal. And so new crews, knew everything. And that's where it started to unwind is now new contractors and they weren't following through. And here's the biggest decision is like when those properties wouldn't sell, I had no choice but to do what John said, drop 10,000, drop 10 and lose money. What I learned was in Wyoming, I was having the opposite, right? I was still able to buy houses at maybe 150,000, put 50 into it and sell it for 300. If you're fixing and flipping, things are inherently, you're going to miss stuff, especially when you're working with GC. But on those houses, I didn't have to take it back. I just refinanced, put a tenant in there and I could cover the debt. This is a long way of saying, I wish I would have told myself back then, Casey, always have 2 exit strategies, right? Don't go do a fix and flip where your only exit is to sell at that ARV. Because if you miss the ARV, you miss the contractors, all these things that happen and you only have one out, right? So I always try to have the 2 exit strategies, or I do that other thing, which is the revive method where I'm not taking all the risk. The seller's they're going to make a little bit less on a deal like that.
Every project, every single one, and I'm talking dozens and dozens of projects, every single one has a curveball. Every single one. And if I find the one that doesn't have a curveball, it goes exactly as planned, you're going to be able to hear me because I've yet to find one and I've been doing it a while. Yeah. Plan A, plan B, sometimes plan C and plan D as well. That's excellent advice. So how do you take in information? Like what is the proverbial book on your nightstand and who specifically are you paying attention to these days?
Yeah. I had a really fortunate. I joined the sub 2 community a couple of years ago, Face Mortgage community. And I just started diving in and I was like already doing deals. So like I got into it and I was surprised at how much content there was out there.
Oh, yeah.
And I've since joined Pace Mortgage as owners club. So there's about 300 or 400 people that have joined that. And it's all the higher level people from the sub 2 community. And that's where I like listening. And Pace he spends a little bit more time with that group and he just does he's able to give us access to his resources and like his marketing guys. He just brings a lot of other people in. So they just have weekly calls and man, that's where I just listened to one last night where I hop on there and Pace does a lot of good things, but one thing he's great at is vision and marketing. And those are 2 things that get me excited.
Yeah.
And just hearing that, like I've always just loved listening to webinars or workshops or whatever, or books and learning and implementing. Cause I'm like, hey, all right, I can hear something and I could see it and I can go do it. It could be a flaw too. Cause I hear, if I go to like here in a couple of weeks, I'll go to Collective Genius, which is a high level mastermind I'm in. And like, I'm going to get 50 ideas that I want to do. And I'm going to be like, we're going to do all these. And I'll go back to my team. And they're like, all right, Casey, my COO, like, yeah, exactly. Pick one of these. He can filter them, right? But I just love being able to bring in information like that. Always be adapting, always course correcting, right?
Yeah, and adapt or die, right? Yeah, I
Yeah.
couldn't agree more. I'm a similar personality. When I go on vacation, it's the most dangerous thing ever when I come back because I come back with 30 different ideas. My operations person will be like, time out. Let's pick one.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
all right, that's her big mantra. Let's pick one. I don't know which one to pick. So eventually I get around to it. Last question in the lightning round. I'm always interested in learning about how people define the pillars of their life, right? And so I'm curious about yours in particular, in that I'm curious how you define, I suspect I actually know thinking about it, but how do you define success in your life?
And I try to just think about this for my kids. I think about what drives me nuts, and it's when people won't just move forward and take action and go with it.
Yep.
Like to me, it's if you are constantly pushing forward, I like to say failing forward,
Yeah.
iterating, going for it. To me, it's like even if you aren't successful originally, I love it. And I heard this from Chip Gaines years ago in his book. Everything I go out and do, it's a win-win either way. I either go it and I crush it and I do well and I'm excited and I'm successful, or I do it and I not as successful, but I learn something and then I iterate and get better. So to me, it's like you don't have to go win every single one of them. But to me, success is like getting up every day and going for it, trying something new, right? And
Yep.
giving it everything you got. I always tell my kids like they love sports, right? And they're more athletic than most, but I always tell you like there's always gonna be somebody faster, bigger, stronger than you, but you control how hard you work. And if you outwork everyone, that's the one thing you control, right? Outwork every single person out there. And what that's going to apply on the sports field, that's going to apply in business and all the time in life. So I would say it's a combination of taking action, right? And failing forward, but also outwork. If you give it everything you have, you can be fine.
Yeah, Jay Wright, who's the retired basketball coach of Villanova, always talks
Mhm.
about you can control two things on the athletic field. And 100%, I couldn't agree with you more, is that everything else is a reaction, but those two things you bring to the athletic field, the business scenario, whatever, even relationships. I couldn't agree more. Difference between, and I tell my kids, the difference between good and great is hard work. That's all it is. You get on some of these athletic fields or swimming pools or whatever sport your kids are into, and there's a lot of talented kids, but you can tell the ones that work and the ones that just rely on the talent. It becomes obvious. So when you're not conquering the real estate world, what do you like to do for fun?
Yeah, this is an easy one. I'm in the middle of it right now, and I wish I could do it all the time. I love coaching the kids, all four boys. And that's why I love having boys, since I just get more and more boys sports to coach. And my favorite is football. Right now, I'm coaching tackle football. I've got a sixth grader, and being able to break down film and go to practice. People get paid to do that. But I would do that. If everything would just be covering, I could just spend half of my day getting ready for football and in practice and prepping. You can't beat it. It's so much fun.
You have to talk to your wife one more and you get a starting five for basketball too.
That's right. We'll work.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm working on her.
All right, man. I've really enjoyed the conversation and getting to know you a little bit. If people want to get in touch with you and learn more about you or Bighorn Capital Fund or any of your other businesses, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, I'll give you guys a couple options depending on where you're at. If you're on Instagram or YouTube or anything, it's really easy. I'm just at Casey Gregersen. You'll be able to find me. Just make sure you spell my last name with all E's and you'll find me. Also LinkedIn. If you guys are on LinkedIn, just search my name. If you guys are just like, hey, I want to like directly reach out to Casey because I'm interested in his summit or interested in Bighorn Capital, or just, hey, I want to talk to you about the Revive method, how you structure deals. So whatever it is, you guys could text me. I'll just give you my number. Just shoot me a text and I'd love to help you guys out.
And you mentioned your summit real quick. Why don't you tell us about that real quick before we sign off?
You bet. Yeah. So our next one, we do them every quarter, but the next one's here in Houston, October 23rd. And it's a 2-day workshop. So if anybody wants to come down, it's incredibly affordable now. Eventually we want to grow and scale these things. But right now, I just want to get the right people in the room. I asked my marketing guy, like, I just want to cover my costs to do the events. Cause to me, it's like, I want to have the right people in there.
Yeah.
And then I want to see what grows after that. Cause right now, our first one, I've stayed in contact with all those people that came to the first summit and we're working together in different ways. So anyway, I would love anyone, if you guys could swing it and make it to Houston, you guys, the first group loved it. And I would just love to have some of your audience there.
Houston's real nice in the fall.
That's right. And then the one will come in July. So I'm like, this one in the fall will be great.
Casey, thank you so much. It's really good to see you. And I wish you nothing but continued success. Be well.
Awesome.
This has been the Real Estate Underground podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. It helps us grow. Until next time, happy investing.